Salve, salve, galerinha, minha sexta, todo mundo, gente. Estamos aqui hoje para acompanhar a gente o lançamento do Falcon 9, Falcon 9 tripulado, gente. Falcon 9 tripulado no 11, que é Falcon 9 para espacial internacional, gente. Luiz, você vai querer participar? Se você quiser participar, você vai vir para o especial, você quer? Você quer participar? Luiz, quer participar? Luiz, comedor da live? Você quer, Luiz? Luiz? Luiz, você quer, Luiz? Você vai querer? Quer tomar no link para você entrar aqui, né? Não, aí você só entra pelo link aí eu aceito aqui você. Gente, como que você pode ver, gente, esse é o foguete SMS, está previsto para ser lançado ano que vem, gente, 2026. Aí teve dois, que é a missão para a Lua.
Nick, I know you're excited for Artemis.
Só acompanhando, também falta 21 minutos e 14 segundos para o lançamento do foguete. Falcon 9, Falcon 9 11. Gente, já vou deixando o like aqui, cadê? Já vou deixando o like aí na live, gente. Deixando o like, não, na live.
Impressive to hear that interview and that moon minute, and it's amazing to see how interwoven what's being done with these crewed missions to the International Space Station and how they campaign. So incredible to see about how those two crews and how those two missions work together. To today's launch, we're now approaching 20 minutes away in the countdown for NASA's.
Nem code, olha lá, gente, como você pode ver, gente, Falcon 9 tripulado. Missão tripulada de Falcon 9 para a Estação Espacial Internacional, gente. Como que você pode ver, gente, o primeiro estágio, o segundo estágio, e o Bloco, para ter gente, não sabe? O Bloco é a espaçonave que hoje tem o astronauta que está lá no topo do
maneuver that tilts the rocket sideways to build up horizontal velocity.
Como que você consegue ver, gente?
To launch as the vehicle is pitching downrange. And once the first stage completes its portion of the mission, it shuts down and separates.
A stage rocket like Falcon 9 sheds that boost.
Falta 19 minutos.
The vehicle needs to go fast at an orbital velocity of about 28,000 kilometers an hour, and that's just to keep it from falling back to Earth due to gravity. That's fast enough to lap the Earth in about 90 minutes or fly from Hawthorne, California in under 10 minutes. Faster than the US 71 Blackbird.
O nosso comando do Nightbot, que é a exclamação azul. Ele Falcon 9 ele vai pousar em terra. Esse Falcon 9 vai pousar em terra. Já colocou, como que você sabe, gente, do canal, ative o sininho, deixe o like, compartilhe, se você gosta de astronomia e aviação, gente. Isso mesmo. Gente, para quem não sabe, gente, essa fumaça é o propelente e combustível, gente. O que está acontecendo, gente? Está meio nublado o céu. Está parecendo que está meio nublado o céu, gente. Falcon 9. Está meio nublado. Pessoal, já compartilhando a live aqui, gente, com vocês. Está compartilhando aqui.
That's a good readback.
Desde a minha live aqui,
And
que é
notifications there from the team here at SpaceX on the ground in Hawthorne, monitoring what we've been keeping an eye on throughout the broadcast here today.
o áudio, gente, tá meio ruim aqui.
Strong and healthy. The Falcon 9, the capsule itself, and the crew, they're still ready to roll.
O áudio tá meio ruim, mas você consegue ouvir.
Looking back to Falcon 9, and what remarkable happens is what happens in flight. It's the first stage, landing itself on land or on a drone ship in the middle of the ocean, the fairings that can parachute back, all ready for another flight to space. Every part of Falcon 9 is a part of a larger design that comes together to do one thing, and that's
Aquele site do Night Spot
And
e
space is the first step to building our
do Night Spot
planetary
também
future. At the top of Falcon 9 is sitting inside Dragon Endeavor. Dragon has played a significant role in
conta do
advancing
18, 16 minutos
from the
e
international
50 segundos para o lançamento do foguete.
Dragon spacecraft supporting human
O
spaceflight
Falcon 9
Endeavor, Alliance, Endurance, Freedom, and our fifth and final Dragon, Grace, which just launched the Axiom 4 mission last month. Designed with safety as the highest priority, Dragon is capable of carrying up to 7 passengers to and from Earth orbit.
the Dragon spacecraft has
Stage
16
2 LOX load has started.
16 Draco thrusters. You heard that great call out there as the fueling continuing to make its way into the rocket. And those 16 Draco thrusters can be used in space to help navigate the spacecraft to its destination, each providing 90 pounds of force. Now, that doesn't include the 8 Super Draco thrusters used for an abort, which are no longer in orbit.
Dragon has been to orbit 53 times, including 48 trips to the International Space Station and human spaceflight missions. Having also flown NASA's CREW-2 mission, Axiom 1, and NASA's CREW-6 and CREW-8 missions. Overall, for the Dragon fleet, this will be Dragon's 49th visit to the space station and its 19th human spaceflight mission overall, and the 5th Dragon flight this year. Dragon is the first private spacecraft to take humans to the orbiting lab, having flown 300,000 pounds of cargo and more than 1,000 experiments to space, as well as 70 crew members representing 20 countries. Our versatile Dragon spacecraft can autonomously dock with the International Space Station when outfitted with a docking adapter, which is just how it's configured for today's flight. And when it's not going to the space station and it's in free flyer mode, the docking adapter can be swapped out for a cupola, as it was back during the Inspiration 4 mission. Another option we have is the Skywalker hardware, which supports extravehicular activities or spacewalks, as we did during the Polaris Dawn mission. And amazingly, there has been a Dragon in space for 1,358 consecutive days since Crew-3.
Now, with T-0 coming up in about 14 minutes or so, our teams are continuing to do a series of system checks to ensure Dragon and the Falcon 9 are ready, with fueling continuing to get underway. And again, we're monitoring that weather that the teams here at SpaceX are keeping an eye on and have been relaying up to the crew. So let's check in with Ronnie with the latest.
Thanks, Joseph. So as you've heard, we are still on track for an on-time launch today, and we're monitoring lots of different factors. Both Dragon and Falcon 9 CREW-11 astronauts continue to be healthy. You heard that we've wrapped up stage 2 RP1 loading, and that stage 2 oxygen loading also wrapped up on time at about 16 minutes. The launch escape system is also armed. That's, of course, the system designed to propel Dragon away from Falcon 9 in the unlikely event of an emergency. The Eastern Range is monitoring keep-out zones along the flight ascent corridor and is tracking no issues for today's launch. Weather continues to be a watch item, so we'll keep an eye on that. But for now, we are go for the 6th mission of Dragon Endeavor. It is a fantastic mission, and here at SpaceX, we could not be more excited. So to add a little something extra, I've got our Dragon plush hanging out with me here in mission control. Now, this guy is not the zero gravity indicator for today's mission. Do keep an eye out for that once CREW-11 reaches orbit. This is, though, a fun nod to all the successful flights that Dragon has made and all of the crews that we have been I think this is a great way to celebrate today's flight milestone. With that, go Dragon, go CREW-11, and I'm going to pass it back to you.
Thanks, Ronnie.
Faltando 12 minutos e 50 segundos para o Falcon 9, Falcon 9 tripulado, e CREW-11.
Continue to work work around the clock to monitor activities aboard the orbital outpost.
Gente, eu acabo
The
falando
team
aqui.
inside the room today is NASA Flight Director Scott Stover, the team in Mission Control and the team in Hawthorne, as well as the astronauts aboard the International Space Station will track the autonomous docking of Dragon Endeavour when they enter into joint
Ainda não chegou a mídia que nenhum
This will
code,
happen when the space
nem
station enters the
update.
approach ellipsoid, which is the invisible boundary stretching 4 by 2 by 2 kilometers that helps us
Nosso botezinho
departing spacecraft
divulgou ali
in the neighborhood of the International Space Station. Once docked,
o nosso Instagram do canal,
and aboard the International Space Station will perform a series of leak checks and then
Nightbot, o monitor do
spacecraft's
canal.
hatch for Crew-11 to float into the
Só
space
tem
station
ele aqui.
and begin their stay.
Só tem ele aqui
Say
como
that the
bot
hatch will be
da
open
live.
about an hour and a half after
Cadê os
docking.
outros bots?
When they enter the orbital outpost, crew will be greeted by the rest of the Expedition 73 crew and will come together for opening remarks. But for now, that's going to be all
O
for
homem de
Mission Control for today, as the
caso
space
de
station continues to build for
caso
launch in less than 20 minutes from now. So, how's it looking on the Space Coast, Daryl?
Well, we've
fecha
got
fechado
some weather,
do
clouds
bote
developing, but so far still looking good. Okay,
tá meio travando
hot
aqui.
item at the moment, and so we're keeping our eyes to the skies. Also, this is a
Aqui agora,
member of our broadcast team right here, an astronaut who once sat right
o
here in
normal
the
que
city as a
já
commentator is now minutes from flying to
tá
space.
acabando aqui,
Zena Carter
gente.
was once in this very seat, the one that Nick Hague is sitting in now, less than a year ago. She was supporting Nick as he launched with Crew-9. She was originally set to command that mission, but when Crew-9 had the shift and had the change up of assignments, she had to step back to help get the team off the ground. And here's what she said, Nick, after watching you and your crew go into space.
Every crewed launch that I have ever watched has really brought me a lot of
Aos
emotion.
10 minutos de 40 segundos
I think
faz
that
o lançamento daquele Falcon 9.
that's my rocket and that's my crew. But I also know that I'm not the only person who can think that. Of course, we have Stephanie Wilson here today, but I mean, there are many, many people who made this mission happen, and there are people on orbit who will be taking this capsule home. And it makes me very proud to know that I am one of many people who can say, that's my crew, that's my rocket. It makes me really proud, it makes me feel very connected to this mission that we all get to take part of. Go Crew-9.
Faltando agora 10 minutos, 2 segundos
She
para
is going to give us some words in this moment now.
Dragon SpaceX confirmed cruise flights are configured for launch.
Your thoughts on hearing that after you launched?
SpaceX, Dragon,
Vai,
plays a particular role. It is our honor, our privilege, and our choice to take part in something much greater than any individual. But it's
ainda não tivemos nenhuma
to each of you at
nenhum
the
ou scrub, olha lá, gente, tá no final, tá
family,
do 11,
and mentors. You fly with
do
us.
11.
Arigato gozaimasu. Spasibo большое. Thank you. With gratitude and focus, Crew-11 is ready.
And more words.
Crew-11, sentiment is the same on the ground from everyone staying here.
Lançamento,
We have enjoyed working with you in the preparation for the mission. Looking forward to doing the same in flight. Good luck. Enjoy the ride.
And more words from Zena Cardinal. We just heard from her live.
Deixa o like, inscreva no canal, vamos já lá, do lado dele.
So true, you know, and it's this palpable feeling that, hey, that's my crew, those are my friends, you know, there's, you know, hey, that's my commander, and just to be here and know that, you know, I've done my small part to help support them and along their way, and there'll be more support.
Então, gente, voltando 8 minutos e 25 segundos para o lançamento do Falcon 9, gente, daqui a pouco tem Falcon 9 aqui.
Spaceflight has nothing to do with individuals. Working together.
100% well said, Nick. And kudos to both of you for showing an immense amount of class. You signed up to do this role almost immediately after getting into space, and we heard from you saying, I want to be there for Zena. Thank you for being here. And go Crew-11. And so with just 7 minutes to go, 7 minutes, we'll take it back to Hawthorne for the final countdown.
Thank you, Daryl. Thank you, Nick. And those were beautiful words from Zena Cardman.
7 minutos e 40 segundos para o
propellant loading and get into engine chill, and more milestones will be along the way. It's going to be about a 9-minute run to orbit, and then Dragon's second stage will continue to cruise for a few minutes after that once the maiden second stage have performed. We're hearing some of the performance calls as we get that final countdown after liftoff. These are some reporting on the trajectory, speed, performance, and the key milestones, but there are some other calls that you'll hear the crew make as well, especially after liftoff. The crew will report out a few number and letter combinations which mark different abort zones throughout the flight up the eastern seaboard. The first two, 1A and 1B, are abort modes available. And right on cue for the engine chill that has begun. And those first stage abort zones, again, 1A and 1B for that first stage. Next are 2A through E. Those will come into play once the second stage kicks in, though we'll only hear that 2A call. And diverting a little bit from the other naming systems, we'll hear the call Shannon, which refers to Shannon, Ireland. This means that the crew could target off the coast of Ireland if they needed to abort late in that second stage burn. You'll hear these different calls throughout the flight uphill along the way, and the performance callouts from the guidance, navigation, and control officer, and also the propulsion lead. So we're coming up on T-minus 6.5 minutes. We heard that the engine chill is started, and that means that that small trickle of fuel making its way into the engine to prime it
Stage
for
1 fuel load
launch.
complete.
So we already heard that stage 1 engine chill has already started, which is a key process that prepares the engines for flight. Right now, the prop in the tanks is isolated from the engines. Sorry. The prop in the tanks has already started trickling in to the Merlin engine pumps as the engines are chilling for the start sequence. And we do this because the super chilled and densified liquid oxygen is really, really cold. And we use this process to bring the engine hardware down to a cooler temperature before flowing all of the LOX and propellant into it during flight. At liftoff, Falcon 9 is consuming 700 gallons of fuel per second. So engine chill helps us to prevent thermal shock and ensures nominal engine performance. Shortly, coming up, we should also hear the call out for stage 1 RP1 load completion.
As you mentioned, engine chill is now underway. We're getting ready for those next call-outs that'll be coming up here shortly, as we are now almost 5 minutes away from liftoff, and that's where they're going to configure for terminal count. And that will be a call for Dragon to configure to terminal count and transition into internal power.
Falcon 9 tanks are pressurizing for strong back retract.
And at this point, the Dragon onboard computers
configured for terminal count.
Perfect, right on schedule, and those onboard computers now taking control of the spacecraft. You also heard the call out for pressurizing to give extra structural stability for the rocket as it makes its way uphill. So we're approaching now 4.5 minutes away, and then around that time, you'll hear, you mentioned it there, the strong back retract, and that'll allow provide access to Falcon 9's fueling lines and umbilicals for prop load and different gases being loaded on board. But right now, everything's starting to wrap up, and Somya, it's exciting
Strong
to get to
back retract has started.
Exciting to get to this point of the countdown. As you heard it right there, the strong back retract is on its way.
So we have a great view on our screen of the clamp arms opening up just around stage 2 under Dragon in preparation for strong back retract. We have some really great views on our screen of that happening right now.
And you can see it just moving ever so slightly away from Falcon 9 and the Dragon spacecraft, those clamp arms opening. And again, those late stages, those fuel lines starting to wind down their fueling procedures as we're about to hit T-minus 3 minutes until launch. Second stage loading will wrap up shortly after the first, and you've probably noticed those white clouds venting from around the rocket. That isn't smoke.
Stage
That's
1, LOX load complete.
That's condensation, as stage 1 liquid oxygen loading has been completed. As liquid oxygen warms slightly inside the tanks, some of it boils off, and that gas is vented to manage pressure. When the vented oxygen hits that warm Florida humid air,
internal count and on internal power,
it instantly condenses into those clouds. As you just now heard, the Dragon now in prop load complete on into internal power. It's fully fueled. The rocket and CREW-11 are ready for liftoff. And this rocket now transitioning into internal power. The gas closeouts will also begin to purge all the feed lines and allow Falcon 9 to be isolated. And then they'll get vented overboard through the umbilicals and strong back retract.
So coming up in just under 20 seconds, we should hear the call out that LOX load will be completed on stage 2, which will mean that there will be 1 million pounds of propellant loaded onto Falcon 9 at that point. We're coming up on that call out in just a few seconds from now.
Stage 2, LOX load complete.
Now that that's complete, we will vent down the TE, which will produce a white cloud off the side of the rocket, which is totally normal and expected.
Dragon is in auto idle.
Auto idle puts that rocket in a state the flight computers understand before it takes over. And that's making sure the transition to the final countdown is smooth and all the flight computers on board are in sync with each other and configured for launch. We're now 90 seconds away from
Ground
launch.
gas closeouts are started. Expect loud venting.
And there's the gas closeout that Sonia was just talking about. And now inside 80 seconds from the launch of NASA SpaceX's CREW-11.
On countdown net, hold. We are standing down for violation of weather rules.
I'll try to sequence is aborted.
Então, gente, aqui, alguns segundos, gente, faltando. Contagem regressiva daqui a pouco, gente. Tá bem nublado lá, gente.
So as you've heard over the nets, that we did just have a hold called at the T-minus 1 minute.
Hold, gente.
That hold due to weather, that was something that we've been keeping an eye on. Our team here
Hold, gente.
as well as NASA, we're monitoring that throughout today's broadcast in preparation for launch, but unfortunately,
Deu hold, gente.
the case as the weather has created that violation, but we'll continue to monitor and await for the new
Aqui eu quero em live também. Live.
That weather violation looks to come into play for launch.
Na minha live.
SpaceX, bad luck on weather there. We just got clipped by a cumulus cloud right over the pad, so ended up scrubbing for weather. With that, you are go to proceed to decimal 100 for launch scrub. We'll begin offloading the rocket.
Dragon copies all 5.100. Too bad, but we'll be ready next time.
Parece, gente, que deu o scrub, gente. F scrub, será, gente? Parece que deu scrub, gente, aqui. Vou ver, gente, verificando aqui. Scrub, gente. Lançamento, scrub, gente. Lançamento do Falcon 9. Deu scrub, gente. Scrub no lançamento. Ou seja, gente, scrub, para quem não sabe, gente, scrub é cancelamento ou adiamento do foguete, do lançamento. Eu dei o scrub. Estamos só esperando a próxima tentativa, gente, do foguete Falcon 9.
And you said the key word right there, and that is safety. The safety of the crew and everyone
Tivemos um scrub, gente. Infelizmente, gente, tivemos um scrub, mas é normal. Gente, porque eu tava vendo, gente, que o céu tava O céu estava escurecendo, estava nublado. Aí no que acabou, o resultado foi um scrub. Foi um scrub no lançamento, que acabou no trango, botando o scrub no lançamento.
It will not happen, and we will target that next launch attempt, which again is going to be tomorrow at 11:43 a.m.
E vamos ver, gente, quando que vai ser a próxima tentativa, gente, ou seja, a segunda tentativa do lançamento do foguete.
And to do that, we're going to head back out onto the space coast of Florida and join Daryl Nail and team
Segunda
as
tentativa.
launch attempt for NASA's SpaceX CREW-11.
Thank you, Joseph and Samia. We appreciate your coverage there. And now back here with NASA astronaut Nick Hague.
Eu tô falando, gente, que é na segunda. Eu tô falando, gente, que é a segunda tentativa. Mas, gente, eu já vou encerrando a live aqui, gente. Então, quando tiver a próxima tentativa, gente, eu vou transmitir. Então, no sábado ou na sexta, gente, provavelmente chegou o filme. Então, provavelmente, Júlia, a próxima tentativa deve ser amanhã, que é sexta-feira, ou sábado. Se for tempo climático, aí pode ser que seja amanhã, porque eles têm que verificar ainda. Ainda não sabe, ainda não sei, acho que deve ser. É que aqui, na live da NASA, da live da NASA, tá aparecendo que as nuvens estão bem, sabe? Então, tá aparecendo que tá escuro. Vem aqui, olha só. É que eu mostro aqui. Olha só. Tá vendo? Eu acho que é bem climático. Tá acontecendo um climático, ó, porque tá fechando o tempo, gente. Provavelmente deve ser, gente, um tempo climático, mas eu já vou encerrando a live aqui, gente. E se da próxima tentativa, eu já programo a live aqui, gente. E também, eu já falando os próximos lançamentos de foguete, gente, aqui. Hoje, ainda hoje, às 3h35 da tarde, teremos o lançamento do foguete Falcon 9 Starlink 13.4. Amanhã, gente, 1º de agosto, teremos o lançamento do foguete Electro, foguete com seu Jet 4, às 22h45. E só essa semana. Aí essa foi a live de hoje, né? Espero que vocês tenham gostado, gente. E falou, gente.
Right now you're looking at a fully fueled rocket with an armed launch escape.
Falou, gente.
And so the crew is in the same posture that they were in the 45 minutes leading up to launch. They've got to be in that posture until they can offload all that propellant, which takes about the exact same amount of time to offload as it took to put on, as well as disarm that launch escape system. And so this is a very active rocket right now, and they, you know, that launch escape system, if it's something